Wonderful. So welcome everybody. I'm sure people are going to be begin joining the webinar as we speak here. I'm going to give everybody about 30 seconds to kind of get dialed in and get settled in for today's session. I can see the participants starting to roll in, which is exciting. Just to make this fun, I'd love for you, the attendees, to use the chat window wherever possible. I'd love to invite you just to say where you're from. So go ahead and if you could type that into the chat window. As a way of introduction, I'm actually based out of Vancouver. And Yvette, why don't you, pardon me, Rebecca, where are you based out of?
Yeah, I'm based out of Seattle.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Strangely, we're an incredibly hot part of the world at this point. I think we're both due for some really warm weather right now.
I'm kind of afraid this weekend. Up over triple digits is a lot for Vancouver and Seattle.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, I don't think we're set up with air conditioning.
No.
Excellent. So today we're going to be talking about how to boost productivity through meaningful goal setting and recognition. And we're going to get things kicked off now. So I'd love to introduce Rebecca. She is the senior or the SVP of People and Culture over at Ally. She has over 20 years experience in culture and people and HR operations. And fun fact about Rebecca, she is an avid tennis player. And of course, as she mentioned, she lives in Seattle with her husband, her daughter, and her puppy Milo. And she also can frequently be found out on the tennis courts. And in my conversations and chatting with Rebecca, I'm just really excited for her to be sharing her wisdom and knowledge with everybody who's attending today. And myself, I am the CEO of Bucket List Rewards. My name's Jason Lindstrom. I'm actually a serial entrepreneur. I've started sort of 3 high growth tech companies, but culture has always been near and dear to my heart. And so I'm really excited to share some best practices and tips with everybody here today. And with that, I think we can get into it a little bit. So in terms of an agenda, we're going to share a brief mission. We're going to be talking, spending the majority of time sharing ideas and thoughts. We will be sharing some kind of cool takeaways at the end. And as always, if there's any questions, I'd invite you to feel free to type those into the chat window. And we're going to be answering many of those at the end. So let's get into the mission side of things. So Ally and Bucket List Rewards are pretty cool. They're very complementary platforms. But if we were to back up and just talk about the bigger picture, the mission is to bring goal management and recognition to every workplace. And I'd love to invite Rebecca to share some commentary on this.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. Well, again, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you because these two topics are deeply intertwined. And in fact, the missions of our companies are intertwined as well. So it's a thrill to be here. So I've been doing people and culture work for many, many years. You say 20 plus, at some point you don't want to go above that because, it's a big number. And so I know firsthand how important it is for organizations, for teams, for individuals to have goals and objectives. And it's really, really important to create that clarity for people and to create clarity to ensure that they're doing the right stuff. Because what I've found is that in the absence of goals and objectives, that people stay very busy, right? They're doing a lot of things, but they may not be doing the right stuff or the right things. And so once you have clear goals established, then it's absolutely essential that organizations reward and recognize employees for their success, for their achievements. And as a result of the goals, even if it's a milestone or a full-on win, a close win, maybe even just learning, I think it's so important for companies to pause, take time, and recognize. And so it creates a virtuous cycle of setting goals, achieving success, getting rewarded, setting more goals, and so on. And so it creates that flywheel effect. So really glad to be here.
Awesome. No, and I think that's really good context because I suspect everybody on the call today is trying to create the flywheel of success to move their company up the success ladder. So awesome. Good context. So we're going to be getting into the first part of the session today, which is talking all about goal management. I've been learning a ton from Rebecca and from Ally. So I'm really excited for them to be sharing their research, thoughts, and ideas. But I think it's always fun just to ask you, the attendees, a quick question. So we're going to pop up our first poll question today. Give me a moment here. So in 1 second, you're going to see the first poll question, which is as follows. You should see this on screen. Does your company have a goal management platform in place today? So go ahead and click yes or no. I'll give everybody just a few more seconds to answer that question. Excellent. It looks like, interestingly, I'm going to hit end poll. It looks like the vast majority of people who answer that question do not have a goal management platform in place. So probably super timely considering the topic of today.
Right. Glad you're here, everyone.
Yeah, totally. Okay, awesome. You've come to the right webinar.
Right place. Yeah.
Awesome. And that leads very nicely into the next first question that I'd love to ask Rebecca. So, and that is, what are some of the strategies that have worked for you, past or present, to successfully use goal management in tandem with employee recognition?
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. Just getting to the heart of it. 2 points that I want to make before I jump in and share what we're doing at Ally today. But first thing, I truly believe that everyone wants their work to matter. They want to make a difference. They want to contribute to the greater good. They want to know what they're doing is important and that it has purpose and meaning. And then secondly, I think one way to really achieve that is to create that line of sight so that people know what they're doing today matters, how that impacts what their team is doing and why that matters, and how that contributes to the company's, ultimately the company's goals and objectives. So overarching success that has worked for us is kind of high level, that's worked best for us at Ally, is to keep goals out in front, sort of front and center, create a high level of transparency around them, and then to check in on them frequently. I think sometimes, I've done it, I think we've all done it, where you set and forget, right? And you just sort of move on to the next thing that catches your eye, and that doesn't work. And so, businesses obviously can use whatever tools or platform or, techniques are best for them, but having a great platform in place that really handles all of the data, tracks all of it for you, makes it easy, absolutely has worked well for Ally. And it allows us to do a couple of things. It allows us to have easy access and transparency to those goals, and also to not overlook successes and to recognize those. So, okay, so that's high level. Specifically at Ally, I love that we do this. Every Tuesday morning, we hold a company meeting. The company meeting is called the Upload, 30 minutes. And the primary reason that we do the upload is to check in on our company goals. We check in on our goals, progress to date, and then we talk about the priorities for the coming week. So, no slides, very little preparation, because all of the information is housed in our Ally platform, right? So it's right there, easy to access, easy to share out with everyone. And then also what's great is when we share out successes and milestones achieved and where we're at with goals, it's just an easy opportunity. And every Tuesday, there's some recognition that goes along with that. So that is my current experience, really is the best strategy that I've seen work, really keeping it out front and center and checking in regularly.
Awesome. Give me a second. I will advance to the next slide, or feel free to just tell me next slide as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Wonderful. One small comment I might add to what you just shared, Rebecca. Yeah. It's funny. You and I were chatting about the importance of telling a compelling story, whether you're in a leadership role or in other formats. And something I had recently Googled or found is something called the forget curve. So whether it's goals or whether it's an important message for management or leadership, apparently people forget 75% of the things they are told within 1 week's time. And interestingly, this applies for goal setting. Like, that's the importance of having something readily available, always in front of your team. But it's kind of funny because it applies outside of leadership as well. Like, whether you're in a marriage or you have children, people just naturally forget things very quickly.
Okay, I'm ready to forget curve down. That is, you just made me feel a little bit better, because as I am forgetting things during the week, I'm in good company. But it's just the criticality of repetition, right?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. To have a few rules, keep them simple and repeat them
Yeah.
often. Awesome. So next up, in your opinion, what would you say are the driving forces in boosting employee productivity?
Yeah, well, really, really timely question, Jason, because at Ally, we just conducted a survey and just published the results of the survey. And the survey itself was centered on goal management. We also explored company culture, mission, and how those things impact employee engagement, productivity, innovation, and other things. So I'm going to share a little bit of that with you, just a couple of data points that we found really, really interesting and compelling. A little bit about the survey. We surveyed over 4,500 working adults in the US and the UK throughout all levels of the organization across all industries. And so again, gathered some interesting data, and we'll share a little bit of that. You can go to the next slide, Jason. So yeah, I love this. Mission is mission critical. And what I'll say is that there's one very, very consistent theme that we've heard over and over again. We've seen it in the data, we've heard it in our conversations, and that is when employees aren't aligned to their company mission, work and productivity suffers. I mean, it's straightforward. I mean, I know we all know that, but it is that simple. And, I fundamentally believe that, as I said, just after the intro, that people want to believe in what they're getting up, to do every day at work, right? They want to believe in it. They want to know it's important. And so our data from the survey fully supports this. So just take a look at a couple of data points here. So 80 on the left-hand side, people that believe in company mission, right-hand side, don't know or don't believe. 88% of employees who say they believe in the company mission also feel inspired to do the work they do. And you can see that it's less than half that for people that either don't believe in the mission or don't know what it is, aren't clear on it. 72% of employees who believe in the company mission feel empowered to take risks, even if they know they could fail, they feel empowered to do so. And again, only 45% for those that don't know company mission or don't believe in it. And then finally here, 62% of folks who took the survey who believe in company missions in their organizations check in on progress to goals with their manager, with their team, at least bi-weekly. And that drops to 40% for those that don't know or don't believe. And here's this isn't on the slide, but this was really, really interesting that of the 60% who don't check in regularly, 24% of those say that they never check in on progress with their team and manager. And so, absolutely speaks to the importance of, having clear goals, having clarity in what you're doing, and having a culture that supports that and a mission that supports that. Okay, you can go to the next slide now.
Thank you,
Jason. So, as we were preparing for this, I looked at the header on this slide, and I just have to acknowledge, I think we're all acknowledging this is not new. This is not news for anyone. We know how important company culture is and how it can set you apart as a workplace. And we know that company culture impacts many things, right? It can impact the bottom line, customer loyalty, revenue, innovation, ability to attract and retain people, all of these things. So I just want to talk about what we learned from this slide, but I want to describe the process first. In the survey, we asked people to rate their company's culture on a scale of 1 to 100, 1 being a very poor culture, 100 being a very positive culture. And then we focused on the top group and the bottom group. So the top group was people that rated their company over 80 points, and bottom was below 20 points. And so some of what we found here and what you see on the slide is not surprising, right? That there's a big gap between highly rated cultures versus low rated cultures when it comes to things like, trust and feeling empowered to take risks. But what we did find really, really interesting and compelling here is that company culture is rated higher when a company-wide standardized goal framework is in place. And then, what we've also learned and what you see here is that, and when a goal framework is in place, it can also impact so many other things, stronger alignment to how work is connected, checking in more regularly on progress. And so, all of this ties back to productivity, because in environments where there is clarity around goals, a high degree of trust, empowerment are in place, and you're far more likely to have highly productive employees as well. So just again, another not all new, but really, really interesting around the goal setting piece and how important that is. Next slide, Jason. And this is my final data slide. Again, just found it very, very interesting. So what we did was we gathered feedback from, like I said earlier, individuals across the company, both individual contributors, managers, and executives. And we asked them about the benefits to having goals, in your company, in our companies. And, all three groups spotlighted some different things that they found valuable, and you can see them represented here. But what we did find was that all three groups said that having clear goals contributed to developing high-performing teams. And I thought that was really, really interesting, regardless of what level you are in the organization, that when there are clear goals, you're more likely to be building high-performing teams. And one other thing that I just want to mention, it's not really reflected on this slide, but what we also learned was that there are many different types of goal management frameworks and tools. And we learned from the survey that OKRs, which stands for objectives and key results, outperform other types of goal management frameworks, but they're underutilized by companies. So we thought that was really, really interesting. And, we heard people say that OKRs help them achieve their goals more frequently, encourage them to take risks, because when you use OKRs, you're setting stretch goals. They feel more inspired. And of course, they rate company culture higher. So really, really interesting data. And it's been fun to share that with everyone. And so again, mission, culture, and the importance of goals and goal frameworks and that clarity absolutely will contribute to productivity.
Awesome. And as Rebecca's going through these slides and this information, keep in mind the questions that you might have in the back of your head. I certainly have a bunch I want to ask you, mostly because as we've chatted about previously, we're actually going through the process of switching from, we call them rocks. It was a very binary goal setting system. There was either like green or red to the whole OKR framework. And I'm learning about it myself right now. And it's super cool. It's like, I really see the power of like having a more nuanced goal. So I'm looking forward to asking some questions about that at the end.
Can I also say that I've been at Ally for 4 months, and so I am very much a student of OKRs as well, but I'd love to talk about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Cool.
Oh, yeah, next slide. So yeah,
absolutely. And then so I think this is if the audience was to take away one thing from our conversation, what would you recommend as an actionable takeaway for those looking to get started with goal management or goal tracking?
Yeah. So if I can just lump these together. So, I'd say number one, adopt a goal setting framework, to help bring clarity and alignment. It could be any framework, right? There are a lot out there, but put something in place. Secondly, then you have to operationalize it. I mean, you have to make it part of your rhythm, part of how you do business. If it's a standalone system that people can't remember the name of and forget to log into, that's not going to do any good. So it has to incorporate with or integrate with how you work as a company and or as a team. And then the final piece is just, of course, consider adopting a tool or platform to help you manage all of this. Spreadsheets can get the job done, but a tool or a platform, I think, will help bring greater transparency and ease of managing both goals and progress and results.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Absolutely.
And I think that's actually a beautiful kind of transition to kind of the rewards and recognition. So again, for the attendees today, if you think the flywheel of goal setting is about creating alignment and shooting for the same kind of goal, recognition is obviously the act of recognizing people for high performance, for hitting said targets. And we're going to be talking a lot about that because there's certainly some best practices and strategies that you can be implementing in your organization. And that leads me to poll question number 2. And I'm just going to go ahead and launch this. And that is, I'm going to move it over on the screen, or you should see this up on your screen, which says, do you think your employees feel recognized and rewarded at work? So I see a bunch of responses coming in, which is awesome.
So interested to hear this.
Yeah. And I'll share some themes I've seen based upon real surveys and results. Okay, wonderful. This is So 67% of you said that you feel that your staff do not feel recognized and rewarded. And to be frank, like that's not at all uncommon. I've seen surveys rolled out both at small startups and at like 10,000 plus enterprises. And it's really common for staff to feel to not feel recognized for their work. And I know there's a bunch of HR people in today's call, and you probably intuitively know the importance of recognition, but I'm going to share some kind of quick stats that make this even more relevant.
Can I say one thing before we jump into questions for you, Jason? I want to echo what you said, that I think every employee engagement survey I've done, rewards and recognition, score low. And that's even in companies where you do a fair bit of it. I think it's one of those things that it has to be the right way, and it has to be meaningful, and it has to really achieve the goal. So anyway, looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start. What's the return on investment? What's the ROI of employee recognition? Talk us through.
So, and to kind of level set, like, why is this important? I suspect, as a attendee, you're probably like, yeah, what is the ROI? Like, how can I move the needle? But also from my experience before rolling out a recognition program, you're going to need management buy-in, and other stakeholders in your company are going to be like, why is this important? Why do we need to do this? And that's a valid question. And to dig into that and share an answer, I'm going to just, in your own heads, don't worry about answering this, but we often share this stat and this question, which is what % of Americans leave their jobs because they do not feel appreciated? So just in your own mind, go ahead and try answering that. And it turns out it's 64%. I've actually seen much higher results, but 64% is the most recent one I've heard. And the reason is many employees will join your company because it has a cool brand. Maybe they got referred into it, but then they leave due to bad management. And a lot of one element of that is lack of recognition. People don't feel appreciated for their hard work. And I've seen this apply everything from junior roles up to C-level staff. Like, being appreciated for your work is fundamental, number one. And number two, I know we're talking about employee recognition today, but like, if we were to remove the employee side of it, recognition is fundamental to being a human being. Being appreciated, loved for who we are and what we are it's a part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's right down at the bottom of having a sense of physiological safety. So it's critical. And then what's the plus side? So according to Harvard Business Review, an organization that has a culture of recognition, your staff will feel 5 times more likely to feel valued. They're 7 times more likely to stay with the company, and they're far more committed to their jobs. Said another way, we've rolled out recognition platforms, and we've seen voluntary turnover go down by more than 40%. And that's significant. I've heard a bunch of recent stats and research saying that as COVID winds down and some companies are returning to work, a bunch of employees are going to be looking for a new job. So I think it's important for you and for all companies to make sure they have a really desirable workplace.
Okay, that's so interesting and so powerful, those stats, right? And it breaks my heart to think that almost 2/3 of people leave because they feel undervalued. So like, we need to do something about this. So you're attending this webinar, you listen to it later. How do I get started? I mean, what are some ways to really just put the wheels in place and create a culture of recognition?
Awesome. I think this is a really good question. And what I love for the people attending to take away is I'm always keen for you to have a 1 to 3 or even 5+ actionable takeaways that you can implement today. And I'm going to share a few of those now. So first, I do think it's important to survey your staff. As a fun takeaway, we're going to be sending a recording of this along with the slides to everybody who attended, but we're also going to be sending out an employee recognition survey. You can just copy the questions. And whether you use our survey or not, it's totally cool. But I'll give you the gist of the questions to be asking. Is first, does your staff feel recognized? That's like helps you set the baseline of your general culture of recognition. Like, are you doing a good job, or are you doing a bad job that needs to be improved? Next, it's really important to ask how people want to be recognized. Is it by peers? Is it by managers? Is it publicly or privately? Not everybody wants to be put up on a pedestal and told they did a great job. Some people, they love the recognition, but it's not publicly. And then lastly, rewards is a really common question we get asked about a lot. And I could share like kind of the top 10 ideas we see from, many 10,000 data points. But the easiest way for you as an HR lead to find out how your staff want to be rewarded is to ask your staff. And so, for example, I'd include things like time off, whether it's like some sort of cool experiential reward, whether it's a gift card, they're all valid, but ask your staff how they want to be recognized and rewarded. You'll be really surprised, and you'll be surprised in a very positive way. For example, maybe you have a single mom who's just doing an amazing job on your dev team. Maybe just giving them a bit of time off and sending them to the spa will be a 10 out of 10 experience for them. And that doesn't necessarily have to cost a lot of money, but that could be deeply meaningful to that person. As I said, we're going to share a survey with you, which would be kind of a cool takeaway. Something else you could even do today is add a recognition component to your town hall. So again, I'm sure many of you have a regular weekly meeting or monthly meeting, whether you call it a town hall or fireside chat. Just add a bullet point called good news and have senior leaders recognize outstanding performance. Almost all the best companies that I'm familiar with, whether it's Google or Home Depot, they have recognition programs in place. And there's nothing better than being told you did a good job by a senior leader. It creates these hero stories, and hero stories are things that other staff members want to emulate because they often want a story told about them too. And one other comment on this, like this concept of narrative, like people learn through storytelling. And so these hero stories get embedded in your culture, and they kind of talk about like the informal rules for how to perform inside of an organization. And then lastly, this is super tactical, but people often ask about this, like how do you do recognition? I wouldn't overthink it. It's super simple, but a couple of quick tips. Make it timely. So when you see somebody doing good work, just verbally speak to it. Or if you have a platform, recognize them on the platform. Make it specific. Good job is nowhere near as cool as saying like, hey, thanks for rolling out that new safety program. It had a huge impact on our new candidates. They love the format. Like being specificity makes something repeatable. Frequency is important. I've heard a bunch of good stats, but often recognition, or in some cases, it can last or have a shelf life of roughly 1 week. So you recognize somebody, that won't stick with them for the entire year. You have to repeat it on an ongoing basis. And a best practice is to incorporate your company values. When people are recognized for living the values, they feel more connected to your mission and organization. And it's that type of thing that lowers voluntary turnover.
Oh, that's great. You started to, give us some examples, Jason, but would love for you to share, what some of the best companies, the leading companies out there are doing. So what are some of the best practices?
Awesome. So again, I'm gonna share just one theoretical slide, and then we're gonna get into hopefully a bunch of actionable takeaways. But from our experience, and again, I've worked with startups to Fortune 100 organizations across all sectors. But kind of the 4 key areas, you want to do a good job with planning. What are the goals? It's important to communicate and integrate the program in the right way. You want to choose the right, what I call functionality. So whether it's peer-to-peer, manager spot bonuses, performance rewards, you want to choose the right programs. And then you want to measure the program's impact. And to dig a tiny bit deeper into exactly what this means. So up on screen is a sample planning slide. The reason I share this specifically is up top, we have some goals for a recognition program. These are actually pulled from real organizations that we've worked with. So increasing employee engagement, breaking down company silos, because I know a lot of organizations are now remote. Your team may not be talking or seeing one another as much as they want to. Increasing a feeling of recognition, increasing customer satisfaction. Like there's a bunch of really measurable KPIs that recognition can help lift. It's also really important to know your employee audience and how they want to communicate. And I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into this communication one now. So communication, why is it significant? So in summary, I guarantee every organization or HR, the organizations you're a part of, you have these preferred and existing lines of communication. And from what I've seen is each company has their own kind of style. Maybe you're an email-based organization. Maybe you're an email-based organization that heavily relies on Zoom meetings. Very popular these days is instant messaging. You want to understand how your staff is already communicating and then weave your recognition into those tools. And so what does that look like? Let's say you're a knowledge-based company, and that would include companies like any company where your employees are in front of computers. So whether that's a tech company or a law firm or maybe city workers, you want to take that into consideration when rolling out your program. So maybe you're using things like virtual meetings, instant messaging, maybe your staff are on mobile, etc. I'm going to show you exactly how to bring a program alive for a knowledge-based company. So talking about virtual meetings, there's an organization called 1-800-GOT-JUNK. They do something called the Daily Huddle. A lot of organizations are like, oh, I think we're too big to bring people together on a daily basis. At Got Junk, they have thousands of team members spread geographically all over North America. They do a 7-minute meeting. They bring everybody together using Zoom. They talk about good news. They recognize outstanding performance. And they also talk about company KPIs. I had a chance to attend their session. They shared 3 KPIs, really simple format, and kind of showed whether they're on track, off track. And why is this important? It created a ton of alignment, happiness, and recognition was woven into it kind of seamlessly. And you can see Brian Scudamore over here. He's the CEO over at Got Junk. And this meeting is awesome. It's full of energy, super fun. And I think this is a great takeaway that you could potentially implement in your organization. Mm-hmm. Next is weaving recognition into your instant messaging tools. So both Slack and MS Teams are super popular tools these days. It's very easy for you to go ahead and let's say you're using Slack to create a new channel called recognition, maybe it's core values, and then invite team members to recognize one another, ideally weaving in a company value when they do recognize one another. Why I've seen a lot of companies have really good success. Like once people are invited in the channel and they start recognizing one another, I've seen participation rates of over 90%. And again, this is just piggybacking off of your favorite communication tools. I've also seen brag boards as a pretty cool tool or a way to recognize staff. And again, I know many of you may be leaning on an intranet or some sort of like social platform. Plugging that into your intranet creates better visibility. And at the end of the day, you will get more of what you reward. So next up, I'll talk a little bit about functionality and then measurement. When it comes to functionality, I just really wanted to encourage you to consider this whole concept of peer recognition. Traditionally, a lot of organizations will recognize things like milestones, like, first year, 5th year, 10th year of service. There's nothing wrong with that. But the most impactful form of recognition that I've seen is manager and peer recognition. And why is that important? Because a lot of times managers may not see all the great work happening across our organization. So a lot of times it's just employees out in the field working alongside one another. When you do incorporate a peer recognition program, the total amount of recognition goes way up. Participation rates go way up because everybody's invited to contribute. And at the end of the day, I've seen a lift in employee engagement of more than 25% when staff are able to recognize one another. And then lastly, measurement's super important. When you roll a program like this out, if you set some clear goals, you launch it and then measure its impact, you can prove to your managers how you are measurably improving the culture inside your organization. And also you can make tweaks over time. The things I'd often encourage people to measure are things like engagement. What's your participation rate like? Management participation. It's really important to have managers and leaders participating in the program. And also, like, what sort of rewards do your staff want and are they redeeming for? But that, in summary, is kind of a quick overview of some best practices.
Can I just say one thing, Jason? You made me think of it, that we, at a company that I was at previously, we had a Cheers for Peers, and it was peer recognition, and it was old school handwritten notes, and then we'd insert a gift card. And we were highly distributed. They went all over the world, actually. And then we took it virtual, when we all started working from home. But it was highly utilized. And it was just this little thing, right? But every time one of those landed on my desk or in my inbox, it felt so good. And it felt so good to write one and give one out as well. So I love that. Love that.
That's an awesome, and that's a great story as well. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And Cheers for Peers, I'm sure we did not come up with that name. We borrowed it from someone else, but it caught on as well. Okay, so then talk with us about, implementing recognition. You shared some best practices, gave us some examples, but how are companies, actually going about implementing recognition programs or platforms?
Awesome. I'm just going to share one story. I'm going to actually be speaking about Google. now, again, I know some of you may be sitting there like, oh, we don't have the budgets of Google. We're not a tech company. But what they did could in fact be rolled out for free or incredibly cheaply or affordably. They just have some really great strategies and pillars of the program, and they had really good results. And that's why I'm going to, and also Google's an incredibly well-known brand. They've also won a ton of awards for best workplaces, top employers. So let's talk about Google. What the heck did they do? These are kind of the pillars of the program. So they did a spot bonus program. This is something managers can recognize employees for. They had a peer program where employees can nominate one another and even hand out points. They had something called the No Name Award. This is a bonus from executives, because you don't always necessarily need to name a specific individual. There's a lot of value in recognizing whole teams. They also took it online. They had an online platform that plugged into all their favorite tools. Like, so Google, not surprisingly, uses Gmail and GChat. And then lastly, they did a bunch in the way of custom rewards. What I think is super cool is they actually tested a cash bonus. Here's a quick question for the audience. They tested a cash versus personalized experiences. And Rebecca, maybe I'll ask you, what do you think is more impactful, personalized experiences or cash?
Personalized experiences.
You nailed it.
Yeah. Woo. Do I win one, Jason? Where am I going?
Let's do it. Yeah. Well, what was super cool about Google is they gave out some both small and large prizes, but cash they found could sometimes create senses of jealousy or competitiveness between employees. Oftentimes, they'd also begin to expect it as part of the overall compensation package, where when it was a personalized experience, it was really made meaningful to that individual. And so employees weren't jealous. They were kind of invited into and able to celebrate the win of their colleague or peer. Rebecca, we should send you somewhere. I'm not sure, maybe like Wimbledon or
oh my gosh, it's coming. Yes. 2022. I'm ready.
Great. I'm going to be chatting with Ally after this call.
There we go.
Next up, you can kind of see a quick screenshot of what Google looked like. Again, a platform that could also be pulled up on their iPhones or Android devices as well. And then in terms of outcome, they rolled this program out. They saw a 460% increase in recognition, and kind of up on screen as well, there's a cool little stat from Laszlo Bock. He's now the former head of people at Google. But again, like one thing I thought was super cool is like Laszlo acknowledged it's not just about the cool perks or these volleyball courts they had in their offices or these bikes you can use. It's about taking excellent care of your people. And that's how you create this phenomenal / world-class culture that people want to be a part of and they don't want to leave. Awesome. So that brings us to the takeaways, which is exciting. So we've had a chance to share some best practices around recognition and goal setting. If you are interested in learning more about Ally, I'd invite you to request a demo. And I'm going to launch one more quick poll here, which is simply, would you like a demo of Ally? My 2 cents, they have some insanely great clients. And additionally, they've worked across all different verticals and sectors. And I've certainly learned just a ton working with Rebecca and their team. So I'm going to leave that up on screen for a few seconds. And I'm going to go ahead and click end poll. And then next up, if you want help or assistance with employee rewards recognition, my team would be more than happy to give you a quick demo of exactly how that works. And I'll pop up one more quick poll. Oh. So yeah, would you like a demo of bucket list rewards? Feel free to click yes or no. But again, we'd be happy to share best practices, tips, or ideas on how to recognize your team and staff. And once we're done these poll questions, what we're going to do is we're going to pivot over to Q&A, where we'd love to answer questions you might have today.
Okay, very impressive, Jason. Orlando Magic.
Yes.
Chick-fil-A.
Absolutely.
Wow, yeah. These are big.
All different sectors. They're super fun organizations to work with as well.
I would imagine, yeah.
Cool. So I'm gonna go to Q&A. Awesome. So what I recommend is feel free to put your questions into the chat window, or to go ahead and enter them into there is inside of Zoom, as I'm sure many of you know, there is a little Q&A window where you can punch your questions in, and I'll give people just a few seconds. And maybe just to start off with, so this is, I think, a good question for you, Rebecca. What are some recommendations for figuring out how to create that line of sight mentioned earlier, especially if you don't currently have a goal tracking system in place?
Yeah. So I have a couple of thoughts there. I think if you don't have a goal management or goal tracking platform in place, possibly you at least want to use something like spreadsheets just to sort of show the relationship. But I think the important thing here is to, whether it's top down or bottoms up, be asking why. So if we're going to go, if it's a top down goal setting kind of strategy, make really clear what the company goals are and some of the key strategies and the results desired. But then when you're working bottoms up, I mean, just to make sure that individuals have a sense about what they're doing and why, where's the connection, draw that connection. And, it's easier to do it when you have some kind of a visual. So even on a spreadsheet, I mean, you can show like, oh, I'm doing this thing because it either directly or indirectly impacts this company goal. It's going to help move it forward. It's going to help inch it forward. So I think that's the kind of the high level. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Jason, but the why and drawing the connection and really showing the connection. And that means having lots of conversations, right?
I'd be actually happy to share exactly what we're doing. So we're following this methodology called EOS, or traction. It's more of like a general management, or it's called the entrepreneurial operating system. It doesn't actually necessarily come with software, but it's kind of a way of doing business. And for our corporate goal setting, we do it quarterly. We review these goals every week at our senior leadership team. And then additionally, we share the goals down with the team members on a monthly basis, kind of sharing progress. And then also we do something called GSNRs. This is a weekly one-to-one between manager, our team lead, and team member. And inside of the GSNR, it's just a spreadsheet. We have the goals. We have 3-month goals, which align with the quarterly goals. So every employee has a clear idea of how they're contributing to the bigger picture, and they're talking about those on a weekly basis with their team leads. And currently we're doing that in spreadsheets, but I certainly see the value of a platform like Ally. We're actually already hitting some limitations to spreadsheets and just to traditional goals, like the idea of OKRs having more nuance, having like super green. There's a ton of value in all that stuff. So.
And as companies grow, right, it just gets increasingly difficult to manage cross-team, cross-geography. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Next up, what are key elements to look for when searching for a goal platform?
Yeah. I think number one is it has to be a platform that employees will want to use and find value in, right? So it has to be a tool that will integrate with how you already work as a business and fit into your cadence, fit into your rhythm, and fit into your workspace. In other words, one thing that we have offer many integrations to other tools, because that's what I've heard. That's what I've experienced before. People will say, yeah, it's an okay system, but it's not how I work. And so, it's really key. And that was a system other than Ally. That was a system many years ago, but it's really key that whatever you select, it's part of how you already work as a business or operate as a business. That's one. And then I think also, you started to talk about this, Jason, but if you have certain operating principles, as a business, or sort of ways that you approach things, make sure that the system is going to fit neatly into that, rather than force you to do something unnatural. So you were describing EOS and
Yeah.
GSR, is GSR goals, strategies, and results, or no? I was making that
So
up in my
it's
head.
well, it's goal
Okay.
set and review, but
Okay, good, good.
yeah,
All right, all
you're
right.
there. It's in.
But if that's something that's important and you want to retain that, then you want to find something that will allow you to continue with that. Yeah.
Awesome. No, thanks for that commentary, Rebecca. And then I think maybe, yeah, one more question. I'll read it and then start. And then Rebecca, I loved your thoughts on this one. The question is, what are some popular employee reward options? So just to echo what I mentioned earlier, it's always important just to survey your staff, ask them how they want to be rewarded. The way we break up rewards is we often call them like kind of non-monetary rewards. And those can be simple, affordable things that you can roll out today so it can be like time off, paid time off. It can be things like having your manager bring you coffee for a week. I've seen some really playful things like getting to pie your boss in the face. That by no means do you have to do it. I've seen that implemented before. And then when it comes to specific rewards, gift cards can be really cool for smaller rewards because they're, can be really affordable. And in this day and age, you can deliver them digitally. So like a $5 Amazon gift card, or maybe it's a $10 Starbucks gift card when people join. So on the first day, people get a nice little welcome award, say like, here's a coffee on us. And then lastly, personalized experiences or local personalized experiences are the most impactful, just like as we saw with Google. And again, whether that's in this world of now that COVID's winding down, it's less so, but people tend to live with a lot of anxiety these days. And so giving people a bit of time off, pampering them, spa days, professional massages can go a long way. And yeah, I think those are kind of the tops of the wave, some of the more popular rewards I've seen.
Oh, that's fabulous. Can I build on that? Because I was looking for an opportunity to share this.
Yeah.
So kind of building on experiences. At a company I was at previously, it was a benefit program, but ultimately really it was about reward and recognition. And it was called paid vacation. And paid vacation was a vacation budget that all employees got on a calendar basis that they could use for vacation related expenses. Now, the last couple of years, the company had to change it to wellness related because there was not much travel. But the beautiful part of this was, when you coupled the paid vacation, the actual dollars with a really generous PTO policy, the message was clear. We want you to go take time. You have the money to do it. Just go take time, go get away, go be with family, friends, go be with yourself, go do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself, enjoy, and then come back recharged. So I know lots of companies, we did $3,000. I know a lot of companies say, well, we couldn't afford to do that. There might be a variation, a very small scale variation that would land really well with your team.
That's such an awesome example. From my experience, one reason that resonates so well is when employees feel truly cared for, and that's exactly what you're doing as an organization, like you're empowering them to kind of live their best life.
Yeah.
Those are, not only do they feel deeply appreciative of that, but those are the types of stories that get told and retold outside your organization.
Yeah.
And that's in essence, that's great employer branding. Like that, like selfish, like on the upside, you get to take great care of your employees. And then reflecting back on the benefit, like I can't even imagine like how many cool stories are being told over dinner.
Yeah, a lot.
Awesome. And then maybe one final question. Why is employee recognition important, and how to determine when to set up a program? I kind of spoke earlier about the importance of recognition. And in summary, Rebecca, one of the good points you made is like every company you've ever worked at scores low on employee recognition. And from the survey results from the attendees today, everybody suspects that this is an issue for them. And so you suspect this is an issue for your company. It's probably something you need to fix or take action towards. And how to determine when to set up a program. So I shared a couple of high-level tips of things you can do today. There's obviously options for things like platforms like bucket list rewards. But I mean, regardless of platforms, I'd encourage everybody to start taking first steps and weaving it into their culture, whether that's building that recognition moment inside of a fireside chat is probably one of the best, easiest ways to start. But Rebecca, from your point of view, any ideas on when to set up a program?
I mean, today, right? Like
Yeah.
now, I mean, don't wait for a right time. Don't wait for budget. I mean, if budget is a constraint, and it is for most of us, you know, start small, start with something creative that has meaning, that really will still move the needle on people feeling valued and cared for. Um, but it doesn't require big budgets. I mean, so I would say, you know, Jason said, ask people. So do some kind of survey, some kind of data gathering, and build something and start small.
Awesome. Wonderful. So those are all the questions. And I think this is probably a very wonderful natural time to wrap this up. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Rebecca, it was lovely getting your perspective, insights, and advice on goal setting and recognition. And I think with that, I would wish everybody a wonderful Thursday. And Rebecca, thanks again so much for joining us today.
Thanks for the opportunity, Jason. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, everybody, take care and
Yep.
have
See
a
everyone.
wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.